Hello, everybody. My name is Ray. Welcome to the Evangelical Dark Web. Today, we're going to be going through another video in our series on ghost megachurches. This one will be about Salem Baptist Church in Chicago. This is a very large, supposedly large, megachurch in the Chicago area. It is predominantly black. And they are making a major change. And this major change is to hire Charlie Dates to be their senior pastor to replace James Meeks. So this is a pretty interesting move because this is not just a career change for Charlie Dates, and we're going to talk about this in this video. This is a very ambitious plan, not a career move, but an ambitious plan by Charlie Dates to kind of grow his influence across two churches. However, Salem Baptist Church is clearly a shadow of its former self. So this will be a pretty interesting experiment in how talented a liberal pastor such as Charlie Dates is. So I first want to kind of describe the situation at Salem Baptist Church in Chicago. This is a 38-year-old megachurch, almost 38 years old, founded by James Meeks and his wife. And I want to show you this picture in particular because this picture kind of captures, and it's from their most recent sermon on June 26th, it kind of captures the decline of this church. As you can see, there's like sections in the back that are completely unused for this sermon or for this church service. And this is in the middle of the church service. So presumably everyone that's going to show up has already shown up. And you can see that there's large swaths of the auditorium completely unused, specifically once you get beyond the ground floor seating area. It's particularly unused. And this checks out in the other screenshots. I don't feel like doing a whole bunch of exhaustive screenshots, but a couple things stand out about this church's YouTube presence. Christian Post cites branch Covidianism or the lockdowns as the reason for this church's decline. As we already know, black churchgoers generally are not returning to church worship services and in-person church worship services. They're generally not coming back to that as much as other ethnic groups are. And we talked about how Potter's Church Denver, which is the church of Sarah Jakes Roberts and her husband Tori Roberts, I think that's how you pronounce his first name, their church had two locations, one in Los Angeles, another in Denver, and they closed down their Denver location despite how, and probably to focus on their very thriving online operation, and they wanted LA as a base of operations. So to me, that was a strategic shutdown to offload the less profitable branch to focus on your core competency of online content distribution. However, Salem Baptist Church is an entirely different animal. This is a much older establishment, and they act accordingly. So here's their YouTube channel. As you can see, almost 10,000 subscribers. So by the way, subscribe to the Evangelical Dark Web because we don't have 10,000 subscribers yet. But if you do, you can help us get there. But anyway, that's just a shameless plug. 10,000 subscribers they must have. Their sermons get anywhere between 3 and on a good day they can exceed 5,000 views on a sermon. And this was a lot more common around 8 to 9 months ago. You saw a lot more sermons get 8 to 10 months ago. You saw a lot more sermons get past that 5K mark. So this one has 6K, 9.6K, 6.1. It was a lot more common back then. 7K. Obviously, a lot of these don't crack 3,000, but the ones that are cracking well above 6K, or a lot of them happened during that time at the end of last year. But in this year, in recent months, they're lucky to get a sermon at 5,000 views. Almost 10,000 subscribers. Most recent sermon had under 4,000 views. So this isn't exactly a thriving online operation. And another thing that really stands out is that the video quality is poor. They are not live streaming in HD. Which, again, what exactly are they doing? I don't think they're very good at this whole online church thing. And that's possibly a contributor to the decline. And I think Charlie Dates, as senior pastor, would actually correct this decision. Or correct this flaw in their strategy here. So Charlie Dates, here's the Progressive Baptist YouTube channel. They do broadcast in high definition. They have 7.57 thousand subscribers. Again, more than the Evangelical dark web, so you want to definitely subscribe. And their view counts are comparable, like they're lower, but if you're grading on a curve based off how large a church is, Progressive Baptist Church has better views than Salem Baptist Church. So, and it shows. And I think Charlie Dates, he might be a heretic, because after all, let's just do a quick recap of who Charlie Dates is. Charlie Dates is the guy who hosted Beth Moore to preach, and I mean preach, at his church on a Sunday, not just Mother's Day, but an actual ordinary Sunday. It happened in March of 2020. I think it was one of their last sermons before they locked down, or either that or it was in February. But it happened in early 2020. Later that year, he would leave the Southern Baptist Convention because their seminary presidents took a stand, a fake stand, I might add, against critical race theory. And he could not have that. He could not abide any pushback on critical race theory. So he publicly left, and it was very widely reported that Charlie Dates leaves the SBC over racism allegations and stuff like that. Charlie Dates would also serve on the AND campaign. He is on their leadership council, and the AND campaign is a very liberal organization trying to affect how the church views politics. It wants the church to compromise on the issue of abortion. It wants the church to compromise on the issue of transgenderism. It is a very liberal organization, and it just goes to show that Charlie Dates is not exactly a good guy if he's doing all these things, if he's taking all these bad positions that are very antithetical to the sufficiency, authority, and inerrancy of Scripture, such as allowing Beth Moore to preach at your church and signing on to the AND campaign and their mission. So we're going to watch a video announcement by Charlie Dates and his wife. This is an unlisted video, but it was highly linked. It was embedded on the Progressive Baptist Church's website, so I didn't do too much sleuthing to find this. So
the Bible says, gives pastors according to his heart, and the heart of a pastor can connect with a people. And
this is on 1.25 speed.
We have been given some major opportunities over the last 4 years or so, but I've been wrestling with my sense of call, and so now Pastor Meeks and the Salem Baptist Church of Chicago have asked us to come back home to lead that great church. What is God's intention as I look at the trajectory of my life? And that's the question I've been asking in prayer. And it's clear to me that of all of the people in the world, the Lord planted me at Salem as a kid. And I kind of grew up under the wings, as it were, of Reverend Meeks. And yet at the same time in prayer, Kirsty, I hadn't felt like the Lord was saying our work is done here just yet. Right. That there are some things, and I don't know what those things are in totality, but still need to be done.
So what's about to happen, Reverend?
Well, here's what's about to happen.
So I want to pause because, just a point of order, he grew up at this church and now he's returning to this church. I actually think, from a liberal church perspective, hiring Charlie Dates is a good move. However, we're about to learn this is not just a career move. They're not just hiring him to leave his old job and to start a new job. We're about to learn that Charlie Dates actually has a much bigger plan than to assume the senior pastor leadership role at a declining ghost megachurch.
First of all, we're not going anywhere.
Right.
I think that's clear. Everybody needs to know I am still the pastor of the Progressive Baptist Church by the grace of God. I'll be here every Sunday and through the week as I normally am. However, we are extending, God is extending really, our platform and our reach to the point where I'll be able to provide pastoral leadership for both churches. I'll become senior pastor of both the Salem Baptist Church of Chicago and remain that at Progressive. And so it's going to mean a lot more work for a lot more people, not just me. And really, it's time, whether this had come up or not, it's time for more people to do more work at Progressive, to carry the vision of the ministry forward, and to release me to do what God has called me to do as the senior leader.
So when is all this going to happen?
God have mercy. Well, you know, when is a great question in the scriptures. Here's my answer in time. January of 2023. We will officially begin this journey. And so some people will say, well, does this mean that the two churches are becoming one? No, that's not what this means. We are not merging the two churches, and Salem is not absorbing Progressive. Salem has its own kind of DNA, Progressive her own. And so some people say, well, why you? I have, by the grace of God, the DNA of both churches now. I see us raising up more leaders, pastors. Let me say that specifically. I see us raising up more pastors so that more churches can receive and experience revitalization. So hopefully it won't just be Salem and Progressive. Hopefully other churches will be able to pick up from what we're doing, and we'll be able to give it, and their churches will experience revitalization. And I don't know the full time.
So a couple questions arise. How does one pastor oversee two churches, two local churches? And I'm not sure the proximity of each church, but I don't think that they're pretty close together, I would imagine, since they're both in the Chicago area. But, you know, being close together in a mileage wise in a city area like that could mean a long drive. So with that said, this is not, to me, biblical. He's basically doing a multi-campus church model of himself, not necessarily of the rest of the church. However, functionally speaking, if he's giving a sermon at one, they might be video broadcasting it at the other. So who knows how this will actually play out on a practical sense. But what he is doing is kind of becoming a pope, a Protestant papal figure over two churches. And then underneath that, he is raising up an infrastructure, a leadership pipeline of new pastors who would then go to other churches. Now, what is the plan for these other churches? Will they also join and assimilate with the Borg, that is Charlie Dates? Or will they just go on and do their own thing? So what exactly is the plan here is a little unsure. I'm a little unsure. However, it is a very good plan for the career and brand of Charlie Dates if he can pull it off. Now, Elon Musk, I believe, I read several years ago, that Elon Musk would split his time between SpaceX and Tesla. And I believe Boring Company was a thing starting off around this time. And he would do Mondays and Wednesdays at one company and Tuesdays and Thursdays at another. It was something like that, where he had days devoted to a company. And then like on Friday would be like more of a flex day, and maybe a third company like the Boring Company would go in there. But he's not exactly going to be doing that, because in order to be a pastor, you got to show up on game day, which is your day of worship. And you can't necessarily split that between churches. One church is going to get the short end of the stick on one week, and another church the other week. And then who knows what's going on in the middle of the week. And these are both substantial in size churches. I would say Salem Baptist Church is clearly a ghost megachurch. It is not the megachurch it used to be. It's certainly not the megachurch that it's built to be. And, probably that's a good thing, because they're probably pretty liberal. You got to be a liberal church to hire Charlie Dates. You got to be a liberal church to do that. Now, to my knowledge, Charlie Dates doesn't call his wife a pastor, which I believe Salem Baptist, James Meeks does at Salem Baptist Church. They're a more egalitarian church. However, it goes to show. So that'll actually be an interesting question. Are they going to ordain women? Is Charlie Dates going to go down the pipeline of ordaining women to accomplish his goal of raising up leaders? But I think this is a huge brand move, not a career move. It is a brand move. He is growing his brand to being above two probably pretty influential churches, influential black churches in the Chicago area. And it's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see how it plays off. So with that said, not much more to talk about, but it is an interesting move. This is a desperate, in my opinion, in my assessment, this is a fledgling mega church that is on the decline. James Meeks is getting out, and their church, and I guess James Meeks had a large role to play in choosing his successor, just like Rick Warren did. They are going with Charlie Dates, who's probably the best hire that they could have for the mission that this church has and the theology that this church has. This is a pretty good move on their part, but will it work? This is a church that is not up to date on the internet. This is a church that is definitely older in style than Progressive Baptist Church. As he said, they have two different DNAs, which is why he doesn't want to merge the two organizations, which from a corporate perspective, buying up a corporation, two different corporate environments. So like a large company buying up a startup, people rail against Blockbuster for not buying Netflix when they had the chance or some sort of deal fell through, but Blockbuster being a legacy corporation buying a young startup like Netflix, that merger could have easily failed because the corporate environments don't match. You have a much slower, much more retail company versus a more growing digital company. So that easily could have failed. And likewise, I think Charlie Dace is actually being smart, even though he is to me, a villain. He is a enemy within the church. He is a liberal pastor, but I think he is being bold here. I think he's clearly ambitious for his brand. I'm not going to say game recognized game, but because we don't know how this will play off, but he's trying to save a struggling megachurch and a church that's struggling due to its own unfaithfulness, I would say, because again, it was widely credited that people did not return to worship after they locked down. This church chose to lock down rather than actually stand and be faithful, and they chose to lock down because they weren't faithful, so people just decided not to come back, is what happened there. So anyway, that's really all I got to say about that. My name's Ray. This is the Evangelical Dark Web. If you like this kind of content, also subscribe to the channel and check out evangelicaldarkweb.org, where you can read the article version of this site and of this video, and you can subscribe to the RSS feed. And if you really like our content, we have a Patreon-like system. For as little as $5 a month, you can support the Evangelical Dark Web, keep the lights on around the site and stuff like that. Have a blessed day, and I will catch you on the next one.